Head basketball coach John Thompson has passed away at the age of 78. Thompson won 7 Big East titles and also led the Hoyas to a national championship title in 1984. Allen Iverson thanked Thompson in his Basketball Hall of Fame induction speech for saving his life by coaching him at Georgetown. So, Shannon, what was John Thompson's impact?
Skip, what he did at this historic university. I remember his first national championship game. He lost to Dean Smith in North Carolina in '82. He goes back in '84, and they beat Akeem Olajuwon. And then the following year against Villanova, who they had beaten twice. And Villanova couldn't miss in the second half, and they ended up taking them down.
No shot clock.
No shot clock. And they stalled them out, and they was backdoor cutting them. Skip, but his impact, if you look at, and Allen Iverson thanked him for saving his life. And I remember in 1989 when he walked off the court because of Prop 48. He said, because I believe this hurts minorities. And he was all for trying to empower minorities and giving them opportunities to go to these colleges and universities. And he felt that that was going to harm them. Skip, in the Big East, I don't know if we'll ever see what that had then. Georgetown, Syracuse, St. John's. 3 iconic coaches, John Thompson, Lou Carnesecca, Jim Boeheim. And the players that came out of the Big East in that era, that was basketball. I mean, basically, I hate to say it, Skip, it was North Carolina, Duke, and then it was those teams.
Yep.
It was everybody else. That was it. And John Thompson's impact, Skip, and I think the thing is, and I hate using this, and he hated it, but as an African-American, to have the kind of cachet, to have the kind of clout that he had, people looked at him like a Coach Smith. They looked at him like a Coach K. He had that kind of cachet, Skip.
He did.
And what he brought, Skip, a lot of young black men, not only old basketball careers, but their lives, because he was the father figure that a lot of these young men did not have. And they embraced him as such. And he was brutally honest with them. So he's going to be sadly missed, Skip, but his impact on the game is going to be unmatched.
I was around John Thompson a lot because I covered all those Final Fours that you just mentioned, starting with that '82 game. What a collection of talent was on that floor. What a shootout that night was. Finally won by some kid named Mike Jordan.
Yeah.
Made a 18-foot jumper that was a signal of what was to come.
Launched him.
It did. John Thompson, to me, was a literally towering figure. He was 6 feet 10 inches tall, with a voice that game was played in the Superdome. His voice could echo around the Superdome.
Yeah.
The baritone that he had. It was commanding and compelling.
Yes.
And piercing. And this man, I love men who have the courage of their convictions, especially when they're up against it. And he was up against those legendary coaches, and he was not afraid of one of them.
Nope.
He spoke out often against Jim Boeheim. He feuded with him publicly, and this is in a time before any black coach had ever won anything.
Right.
And I know you hate it when somebody says he was the first black coach to win a championship, but he was.
He was.
In 1984, he was the first black coach to win a college basketball championship. And he created a powerhouse at Georgetown.
At Georgetown.
A powerhouse at this little school, this nice little school there in the shadows of D.C., known for academics.
Well, you want a law degree or a business degree? Right. Nobody was thinking about basketball before John Thompson got there.
You want to talk about putting that school on the map? And he created this thing called Hoya paranoia.
Yes.
Where his teams played so hard, so physically, so intimidatingly, that they became the bullies of college basketball in a good way. Because they weren't, I know they were sort of gray area, play hard to the point, but they weren't considered dirty teams. They had this kid named Michael Graham. Do you remember that?
I do.
Enforcer?
Yes.
Bald head.
Yep.
And he was as hated and feared as any player in college basketball as their enforcer. And those teams, the great line from John Thompson was, I didn't like being the evil empire, but I marketed it. And he did. He played to it because it worked. It intimidated other teams. and other coaches. He was doing things, you can't do that. Well, he would just do it.
Right.
And he would speak out in ways no black coach had ever spoken out about racial inequality. And remember how he came up through pro basketball.
Yeah.
For 2 years, he was the backup to the great Bill Russell in
With 2
Boston.
championships. Yep.
Yep. And he was just the backup, and that averaged 4 points and 4 rebounds,
Right.
played 10, 12 minutes. But he experienced firsthand what Mr. Russell was going through in the city of Boston in the mid-'60s when it came to racism.
Right.
He knew it, he felt it, and he raged against it. And he went to Georgetown and continued to fight against it. And I believe that he opened a lot of minds and hearts of white people.
Yes.
Just because he was saying things no black coach had ever said that.
No, Skip, but at the time, and you know, when a lot of blacks were thankful to have a job, he like, hell, I deserve this job. I'm not finna be meek. Skip, there was nothing meek about him. His towering physique, 6'10", probably 255, 260 pounds. So he was a towering figure. And he had a voice. He voiced his opinion. You never had to worry. I wonder what Coach Thompson thinking. You didn't have to worry about that because he told you what the hell he was thinking. Exactly. And verbatim, and in curse word, he was giving away. He dressed it up for the media. Nope. He was heavy on the curse words.
Heavy. There was no PC to him.
No.
He just let it spill.
Yes.
And he would always say it so matter-of-factly that you'd sit back and say, he's right.
Yeah.
He's not going to dress it up
No.
and sort of parade it out there for you. He's just going to throw it on the table, and you all sit back. The white media would sit back and say, you know what? He's got a point.
Yeah. And Skip, when they got Patrick Ewing, I think Patrick Ewing was the big domino.
Yep.
They got him. Well, Sleepy Floyd was there before, but I'm saying for big men. And the next thing you know, here come Dikembe Mutombo, and here come Alonzo Mourning, and it was a string of big men to come through. And he had Allen Iverson, he had Reggie Williams, and those teams, as you mentioned, they played hard. They were physical. You were not getting anything cheap to the basket, Skip. That was not going to happen. First of all, Patrick Ewing was going to throw about 12 rows up in the stands. Because remember, Skip, I think if I'm not mistaken, the first 10 points that Carolina got were on goal tens by Patrick Ewing. He was trying to send a message. Yep. He was trying to send a message like, nothing easy is coming up in here. And you know, they called it for the goaltending. But Coach Thompson, Skip, his impact, what he meant to Georgetown, what he meant to D.C., you know, they had his son to try, but it's kind of like if you had Coach Wooden's son to try to coach at UCLA. Skip, it's him. That's his legacy. I mean, you're never going to get another one of those. And the towel, Skip, you remember, he was known for having that towel thrown across his shoulder because he was sweating up a storm. It was hot in there, probably didn't have air conditioning in that gym, and he was sweating up a storm.